Hi y'all, I'm Samantha with the Hillbilly Kitchen, and today I'm going to be making a chocolate covered strawberry cake. So to make this delicious recipe, you're going to need to start with one recipe of my chocolate cake, one recipe of strawberry mousse, and one recipe of fudge icing. You also will need a strawberry for garnish for each cake that you make. Now here are some of the tools I'm going to be using. This is a 4-inch biscuit cutter, stainless steel. I'm also going to be using my cake wheel because I'm making a round cake. It does make it a little bit easier to get that icing nice and even all the way around the cake, and I'm making a pretty cake. So this chocolate cake recipe, I have poured half of the recipe into this pan, this 9x11 baking sheet, baked it, and then put it in the freezer. I put it in the freezer because it is much easier to cut out bits of cake if the cake is frozen. So you just cut on through there, twist and make sure you got it, and pull it out. And do that with the whole cake. Oop, that one came out really nice. Won't even have to dig it out. Now, depending on how everything stacks up, I will likely use 2 layers or 2 of these little round 4-inch cakes to make each individual cake. So, to get started, I've got my mousse in a piping bag with a round nozzle or a fitting on it. And I'm going to pour some just like that. That's plenty. And then take another layer of cake and put it on top of that. And 2 layers is going to be plenty. Now take a little bit of your chocolate mousse, and we're going to make the icing really quick. Just pour some icing sugar or powdered confectioner sugar. Add that to it. And mix it up. Now I'm adding the confectioner sugar to the strawberry mousse because it's not quite stiff enough to use as an icing, and I'm also going to use this as an icing. Now I'm adding a tablespoon of melted butter at a time until I get it to the consistency I want. Okay, now we're getting to the consistency of icing. I'm going to go ahead and put a thin, now as the butter cools too, that will get harder, so keep that in mind while you're spreading it on, or while you're mixing in butter. I'm doing a thin crumb coat first because I don't want, I'm going to be putting this in the freezer, and I don't want any crumbs in my final product. And by doing this, I kind of prevent that from happening in the final layer of icing. Okay, so it's not super pretty yet, but that is only your crumb coat. That we're going to take a break and put that in the freezer for at least a half an hour, but until everything on the outside is really stiff. We'll be back and we'll finish icing this thing and turning it into a chocolate covered strawberry cake. Okay, out of the freezer now. Let's do some more icing. So this cake as it is very, the way I have it, it's really cold. It's the outside of it is frozen. I would say it's not frozen to the middle yet, but it's so cold that it's going to harden up the buttercream, the strawberry buttercream that I made here, really quickly. And hate to make you wait, but we're going to have to put it in the freezer again before we add the fudge topping, because we want our buttercream to be very, very cold before we add warm, pourable fudge icing. Because I froze it though, I don't really have any chocolate crumbs in my buttercream, and that's what I wanted. So with this icing, it's a very little cake, and that's a little bit tricky, I guess. But just keep adding a little bit of icing at a time. Take your time, get it even. On this particular cake, by the way, it doesn't really matter what your top looks like or how smooth or even it is, because we're going to be covering it with chocolate fudge icing. I'm going to take this opportunity to clean all this stuff off of the edges. Just take a wet paper towel in your finger and clean all that you got off of the clean all that off of the plate that you got on there. Back in the freezer for another 35 to 40 minutes. In the final stages of decorating this little cake now. Now here I've got my fudge icing, and I just made it probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes ago. So it's still really warm and really workable, but because my cake is very cold, I'm hoping that it will harden shortly after hitting the cake rather than melting my buttercream icing. So take just a little bit and start pouring it on the top evenly. You don't have to go fast, especially if you're not used to decorating cakes. And I want it to just run over the edges a little bit. Give me that ganache look. Okay. Take your strawberry that you're going to be using for a garnish, dip it in your fudge, and lay it right there on top of the cake and settle it on top. There you go. And there is a beautiful, delicious looking dessert. Chocolate covered strawberry cake. Thank you for joining us on the Hillbilly Kitchen. I'm Samantha, and I confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.